Hi everyone. Thank you for all your support. I've received so many responses and feedbacks on Facebook and personal messages and emails and phone calls and SMSs. I'm really overwhelmed by the people that who have been able to listen to some of my previous videos and able to share their feedback and also requested some changes to the ongoing videos. In terms of the request, it was more about how it get presented than the content, because the content is purely from my heart and it's my opinion, right? And how I see the world. So thank you to everyone. As part of the request, and I'm taking one into consideration at the moment. I haven't given much thought. In a lot of the videos have been done in a spur of the moment, as like today, just the spur of the moment. I had the desire to do the video, and I had the strong feeling I'll be sitting and doing something else, and all of a sudden there'll be a calling for me to come and do this video, like without even thinking too much or doing any research. But I've listened to one of the feedback and split the videos into Tamil version as well as the English version, because there was a lot of English speakers that who would love to listen to what I have to say. And they would like to, of course, they can't speak and they don't understand um, Tamil, so they would like to have that in full English. They were able to switch between words here and there in my previous videos, so I respected that, and I'll do my best to be able to satisfy all. So today I have spoken, I've uploaded my Tamil version of the video. It's about Tamil culture. I think when it comes to English, I wanted to tilt it a little bit, and I wanted to talk broadly about the culture. I think I'm more relaxed now. There's a couple of pressure when I was doing that video to get a lot of Tamil words out of my mouth, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't even speak fully in Tamil anymore. And so there was a lot of that pressure, and also the topic is like, it was too hot. So I'm more smiling now than before. So let me get on to the topic, right? It's about the Tamil culture, but I think the ethnical cultures and the communities operate in the same way, because I've got friends in all walks of life in all kind of ethnic communities, and they come with their own challenges, and sometimes we sit there and have a coffee or a drink, and often that we see the challenges are quite similar, not exactly but quite similar in terms of the pressure that everyone feels. So the reason for me to do this video is I have been quite honestly disturbed in the last 2 weeks by stories coming to me from various parts of the world, that one particular story was a young girl who took her life. She was sexually abused in her own house, and by one of her relatives. And she has told her parents. However, the parents felt the pressure from the society, the culture that they live in. It's not something that is commonly spoken of, and they couldn't point the fingers at the person who actually did it. They knew who did it, but they couldn't point the fingers to the police. So the investigation is currently underway. But you know what? Why the investigation is currently underway? Because the girl took her life. Because she felt like the parents weren't listening. She was helpless, and she decided to take her life. And this is not the first time. This is not the first time. I've heard young adults, children in our communities who are consistently feeling helpless, who are being destroyed by the culture that we live in. In some of the strongest cultures, it is hard to breathe. Like, I come from a Tamil culture. I was brought up in a Tamil culture. The immense pressure that I felt when I was growing up. I had a liberal father who was able to support me, but I'm sure he would have copped it. Even now, like, I feel so much pressure. Like, I cannot be a certain way. I cannot be doing this. I can't be doing that. I get classified as whatever. Like, it's just beyond comprehension. It's the people, when they throw shit at you, it's brutal. It's really brutal. It's sometimes it's inhumane for the sake of protecting. I have to be very careful on what comes out of my mouth. For the sake of protecting the culture, right? It's just It's really disturbing me because there's a lot of kids who are taking their lives, and it's just beyond joke at the moment. There's a lot of child abuse, sexual abuse, domestic violence that happens in us communities. Doesn't matter whether it's Tamil, whether there's Greek, Italian, or name it, like even Turkish, or name it. Like, I speak to so many people from various walks of life. It's the same. It's the same stories get repeated, and a lot of the time it's not a violence or an act against females. I've got friends who have been abused when they were friends and boys who have been abused when they were little kids, and they weren't able to, even today they weren't able to discuss it with their parents, because one, they didn't know what it was all about. It only hit them when they really grown up as adult. They're like, oh, because that happens when you go through abuse. When you're a child, it doesn't hit you. Like I was telling in my previous video, I've been through sexual harassment when I was young. It never hit me in my school days. It's only quite recently it hit me hard, and I'm like, oh my god, I was harassed. Now I remember those incidents of when it happened. I was 8 when it first happened, 8 or 7, yeah. And it's just ridiculous how it keeps repeating itself. And sometimes at adults that you come to know of these or come to realization, and most of the time there's a lot of adults' life and choices and livelihood are being affected by incidents that happen in our childhood. We don't understand the emotional pain and emotional abuse, emotional damage, and the scarring that get done through all of these things that happen when we are young. So, add on top of it, the culture comes on, and the victim get blamed. It's a culture that where the victim get blamed and the person who has done it often walk away free. And there's a lot of people that I know who are very much abused people, and or done the wrongdoing. They are freely walking away, free, because none of us are ready to raise our voice. And this girl that who took her life, and there's many more in suffering, emotional scars. They go into relationship with those pain and scars. You know what that's going to come out with? So many injured souls coming out of the relationship. There's relationship failures. There are things that are happening as a result of what happened to us in our childhood, right? So I was talking to a man of 85 years old about 5 years ago, and I was talking about on the topic of child abuse, and he was telling me how he was abused when he was little, and I was like, really? And he said, yeah. And he said, well, in those years, like, we can't share it with anyone. You're the first one. He said, as far as I can recall, you're the first one I've started to open up, and his voice started to shake a little bit, because for him this was the first time that he's opening up, and he was quite uncomfortable talking about it. The reason he brought it up, because I spoke about various things and the things that's going around the world and how it disturbs me, blah blah blah. And so he opened up and he shared, and he said, I later realized it's a normal thing and I just have to get on with my life. And I said, does it hurt you? He said, yeah. He said, it's because it's one of his relatives who took him for something, or he was given that responsibility by his parents to go and get something done. And he did what he did and scarred that individual when he was young, and he is now 85, right? So look at these generational abuses have been going on as a result of society and culture. Look, I have to be very honest. Our culture has a immense pressure on people. There are people who doesn't want to speak up because they're so scared. They get they get attacked. There are a lot of people who think that they're protecting the culture, and I asked them now in my previous video as well, give me the literature book of the Tamil culture. I want to see the book of culture from all various ethnical groups, not just Tamil, like everyone, like Italians and Greeks and anyone, just give me a book that I need to know about your culture. What is your culture says? Does it say that the woman cannot be on stage and hosting a show? Does it say that the woman can't be dancing at an event? Or does the culture says that you're meant to be in an abusive domestic violent environment, even though you're married to a man or a woman? Because domestic violence is not just against against women. There are men who are affected by that. I've got people that I know that who were abused, men that who have been abused in relationship, and they were scarred. They're still scarred because of that abuse, but they stayed on for the sake of kids, for the sake of this, and for the sake of parents, for the sake of culture, for the sake of this and that. At the end of the day, everyone was scarred as a result of going through that. So the culture has done enough, and I think, as I previously mentioned in that video, enough is enough. I have zero tolerance when it comes to kids taking their life as a result of not having another option. Because what they feel in our culture is, if they talk to their parents, like, first of all, they don't have a great relationship with their parents, and parents don't talk about these things to their kids, because it's like, shut off, it's don't talk about certain things. You're a son or a daughter, I will provide you, all you need to do is study, get through your studies, and then you go through something in university, and then you become X, Y, and Z, then you get married and you go away. That's all about it. There's no emotional discussions, are very, very rare in our community. So likewise, I find that it's very disturbing, because the kids can't go to their parents, and in some instances where they're fortunate, where the parents are a lot more open to having this discussion, then they're scared by the relatives around them and the society they live in and the cultural norms, that these things shouldn't be spoken of. So when your son or a daughter doesn't fit the heterosexual society, and when they're different, parents don't talk about these things, because they're trying to hide it, because it's not the norm, so everyone's going to talk behind it, and they can't handle the social pressure. So what are these kids are doing? It's just, when they identify they're being attacked by the society when they're different, or when something is happening to them that then they don't meet the norm, which we shouldn't be, because we are all unique individual human beings. There is a reason that we are all individual. We can't just be cloned. We don't look alike. We don't speak alike. We don't think alike. So I don't know how the culture expect us to be cloning the same thing, cloning the same activities, cloning the same behaviors. I am sure there is beautiful things that I take out of the culture, whether it's the Tamil culture or the Greeks or the Italians or the South American cultures. Like, I love certain things that comes out of these cultures, which are very common across the board. If you hang out with these people, the hospitality and, lots of other things are very common. But the pressure that it put on, it feels like someone is standing on your head and not allowing you to move, and you have to walk straight and think straight like that, the way that they think. So I think my message to everyone is, have a think about what your culture means, because culture was created for humans to coexist in a society that they lived in, right? Now everything has changed. What was the culture back in 2,500 years ago? It's not the norm now. Things have changed. The world is changing. The way that people think, that change, because people need to change. They need to evolve. So anything that doesn't stand with the evolution of human being, it's going to be lost. It's the same for religion. It's the same for culture. It's the same for everything. What doesn't stand with the time will evaporate, will not stand the test of the time. Everything needs to move. Life is a flow. It needs to move. Nothing stands still. Likewise, I feel the culture needs to evolve and grow if it needs to have a place in the society. So this is what I'm asking everyone to do, is have a think about, if you have strong beliefs in the culture that you think that is right. I'm not questioning whether you should believe or not, but not in the expense of people taking their life. That is not tolerable. And when it comes to kids, when it comes to child abuse, when it comes to anything that affects children, I have zero tolerance. And if anything standing in the way of, people can't survive and not breathe, that shouldn't stay in our society, right? Kids needs more things. Kid needs more support. I think we should be all able to do. We have been given this life to live our life, so let's do that. So I request everyone to have a think about how they input to the culture, how they can influence the culture that enable our younger society to live freely. Thank you so much.